A very good evening to all members of Bhikkhu Sangha, all pious yogis and Dhamma volunteers. This evening, we shall discuss about Panyati and ultimate truth. When we make mental labelings such as rising, falling, or sitting, touching, hot, pain, and so on. So these are panyati or concepts. Some yogis think that they should not use panyati during the practice of vipassana meditation. They think that by using panyati or concepts, one could not realize Paramatha Dhamma. So if there is no panyati, then it's not possible to communicate. So even the noble ones use panyati in their conversations. There's a sutta in the Samyutta in the Devata Samyutta. So this Deva overheard this group of arahants. They were talking using conventional words such as I eat, I speak, they come to speak to me, and so on. So this Deva was thinking, I had thought these bhikkhus to be arahants, but can arahants speak in ways that imply belief in a self? So this Deva thought, if anyone use a word for the I, or I eat, my arms bow, my ropes, and so on, so this person must still clinging to the idea of a self, or they still have the notion of a self. So he went to see the Buddha and asked these questions. If a bhikkhu is an arahant, consummate, we can say, becomes perfect, accomplished, with taints destroyed, one who bear his final body, would he still say, I speak, or would he say, they speak to me? So the Buddha answered, if a bhikkhu is an arahant or consummate, with taints destroyed, one who bear his final body, he might still say, I speak, and he might say, they speak to me, skillful, knowing the world's parlance. Means this merely the worldly expressions. He uses such terms as mere expressions. So they still use the worldly expressions or worldly concepts for the purpose of communications. If you think the noble ones you will not use any more worldly concepts or worldly conventions, then they may speak like this. The aggregates are eating the breakfast, the 5 aggregates are practicing meditations, or this is the bowl belongs to 5 aggregates, and so on. So do you think anyone will be able to understand them? So similarly, some yogis say that when one practices vipassana meditation in order to realize Paramatha Dhamma, or they should not use any panyati. if one cannot use panyati, then one will not be able to take note of any mental phenomena and physical phenomena. They also could not say anything in the interview. But the Deva still not satisfied with the answers of the Buddha. Although the noble one Arahants have abandoned the talk that implies belief in a self, but they may still hold a view of self. They still hold a view of self. That means they still can conceive an idea of self. So if one still can conceive this idea of a self, then this conceit can arise. Conceit means conceit of I am, or in Pali known as asmimana. So so the Deva thought that the Arahants said, I speak my arms bow, my robes and so on. Although they do not speak with a belief in a self, but because of they still have the conceit, that's why they speak in that way. So the Deva asked another question. When a bhikkhu is an arahant, consummate, with taints destroyed, one who bears his final body, is it because he has come out upon conceit? Thus he would say, I speak, or he would say, they speak to me. So as you know, mana, conceit, is one of the 10 kinds of defilements. So when there's this defilements, conceit, then one will take pride of a self, whether I or mine or I am, and so on. Then the Buddha answer, no knobs exist for one with conceit and abandon. For him, all knots of conceit are consumed. Consumed means abandoned or destroyed totally. Though the wise one has transcended the conceit, or he still might say, I speak, or he might still say, they speak to me skillfully, knowing the world's balance. He used such terms as mere expressions. So noble one can never use these conventional terms with conceit or with mana. The noble one arahant can never use this conventional concept or conventional terms, for example, I, with mana or conceit. But worldlings may use these conventional terms or conventional concepts such as I, you, my, yours, with conceit or with mana. And Buddha needs to use these conventional terms, for example, a person, a self, to explain certain teachings. So when when Buddha explains, for example, the teaching of Brahma Vihara, Buddha needs to use these conventional terms, a person, a being, so and so. The Buddha taught certain teaching, for example, Brahma Vihara. The Buddha needs to use the conventional terms or conventional concepts. If conventional concept or terms is not used, then it's not possible to practice Brahma Vihara. If Buddha only use Paramatha Dhamma, then it is not meaningful to practice Brahma Vihara. Then it may become, if one have to use the Paramatha Dhamma, the terms of Paramatha Dhamma, Then when one practice metta, then one may have to make this the wish. For example, may the Tejo Dhatu cooling down. But we have to develop metta towards a person for wishing for his welfare. That's why we have to wish may so and so be free from enmity, or may all beings be free from enmity, or sabbe sata avara hontu, and so on. Similarly, some metta meditators may practice metta towards the pains in the body. Sometimes they wish they send metta to that painful legs or painful body. May this pain will be subsided, and so on. Similarly, when Buddha wants to explain about hiri and ottappa, then the Buddha has to use a conventional concept, such as a person, you, so and so. The Buddha cannot say that there's no self or person feeling shame or feeling fear. When the Buddha wants to explain karma and its results, the Buddha also have to use a conventional concept or conventional terms. When the Buddha wants to teach about past life, or explain the past life of a person, or the life of the Bodhisattva, the Buddha have to use a conventional concept. Even though the Buddha say, the Buddha using this conventional concept or term, for example, a person, a being, you, and so on, but it does not mean that the Buddha taught that there is a permanent self or permanent being. So there is no permanent self or permanent everlasting being or an everlasting entity. So if you wish to understand that there is no permanent self or permanent being, then you have to understand the teachings of conditionality, paticcasamuppada. So when we make mental noting, for example, rising, falling, or left, right, hot, and so on, this noting or labeling is known as the tatya panyati. Tatya means true or not false. Panyati means concept. In other words, this term or these words is commonly used by everyone. So this concept helps us to come to know what is this. So in the teaching of Abhidhamma, it explains about these six kinds of concepts that makes things known. For example, the first one is known as direct concept of the real. When you are making mental noting, painful feeling, you may, when you're mindful painful feeling and not painful, or when you are mindful of movements, you note it as rising, falling. So this is known as direct concept of the real. First
This
one.
is the first one.
Direct
first
concept
one,
of real. Real means sabhava. It has its own essence, or painful feeling, or the movements, rising, falling. So this is known as tatya panyati. It helps us to lead the mind to experience the reality. That's why meditators should not mindful of the mental noting or labeling. If you mindful the words, pay attention to the words, you may not able to realize the ultimate reality. So that mental noting or labelings helps the mind to be more attentive, to be more precise on the object or that was noted. The second is known as a direct concept of the unreal. For example, the term or the concept such as the mountain. This mountain only does not really exist in the ultimate sense. Then this concept or concept of the unreal or concept of the unreal by means of the real. Unreal means สมมุติ that does not have what called สภาวะ the concept of unreal by means of real, for example, the noble ones, the noble ones direct knowledge. Direct knowledge is an ultimate reality. Noble ones is an unreal. Is a concept. Then the fourth one, the concept of real by the means of unreal. For example, a man's voice. A voice is real. That means it's one of the external rupa. But man is unreal. So when we say eye consciousness, this eye consciousness is a concept of the real by means of the real. Consciousness, as you know, is one of the ultimate realities. So this eye refer to the eye sensitivity. So both are real. And the last one is about the concept of the unreal by way of the unreal. For example, the king's son. So the king is unreal, does not have any sabhawa. Son also unreal, does not have any essence of sabhawa. So whirling, you have this clinging to the self, or when they use the conventional terms for the I, a man, Mr. So and so. But the noble one, arahants, also use this conventional terms or concept, I, you, but they do not have any clinging to this self. So at the beginning of practice, it's not possible to mindful of any object via mental noting or labeling. Mental labeling like a tool to help meditators to develop mindfulness. So when they are mindful and note for the rising, falling movement of dormants, they should make sure that the mindfulness is staying with the movements of the rising, the movement of falling. So when the mindfulness and concentration are getting stronger, then meditators will be able to experience the movements clearer and clearer. So when meditators mindful and note the pain, meditators will be able to experience the painful sensation clearer and clearer. At the time, the mind is no longer interested in the concept.
The mind
is no longer interested in the concept. At the beginning of practice, when meditators are mindful of a painful sensation or any physical discomfort, the mind also concerned about the location, which part body, and so on. They may have some worries when the pain is getting stronger and lasts for longer and longer time. But if the mindfulness and concentration are getting stronger, then the mindfulness is inclining towards the ultimate reality. At the time, meditators realizing the characteristics of pain as something that's undesirable. So sometimes meditators differentiate the pain, for example, cutting pain, piercing pains, or biting pains, like being bitten by the ants or by the mosquitoes and so on. Do you think it's necessary to analyze the pain or to differentiate the pain into different kinds of pain? It's not necessary. Whatever pains, they have the same characteristics. It's merely experienced as an undesirable object. Even you could analyze into different kind of pains. All these pains are not desirable. Then, when the mindfulness is getting sharper with deeper concentration, meditators will realize the painful sensation is arising and passing away instantly. So when meditators make more and more progress in mindfulness, concentration and experiences, then they may not have to make mental labeling so frequently. When meditators are mindful of certain object, as they mindful, the mind also take note at the same time. So that's why we say the stronger the perception, the stronger the mindfulness will be. But the perceptions in the practice of vipassana meditation is different from the perceptions in the conventional world. Perceptions, sanya in the conventional world, take note of the object, the shape, the form, so that when they come across again, when they see it again, they will remember that, I had seen it before. But perceptions in the practice of vipassana meditations is different from the perceptions in the conventional world. Perceptions in the vipassana meditation means the mind perceiving the object, an object that was arising and passing away instantly in the previous moment. So you have to bear in mind this difference. For example, meditators perceive the form of the abdomen is expanding, getting larger, bigger. Then they perceive the abdomen is contracting, the form of the abdomen changing. So at the beginning of practice, meditators cannot go beyond the form or the shape immediately. So they know the abdomen is moving, then they're able to mindful and note rising or falling. But when they are able to develop more and more attentive and precise mindfulness, then they would perceive the movements is getting clearer and clearer. So eventually, meditators come to realize there's only a process movements, and then there's a process of mindfulness noting the movements. Similarly, when meditators are mindful of the movements of the foot, such as lifting, pushing, dropping. At the beginning, they do realize that the foot is moving, then they can mindful and know it. But when the mindfulness are getting more and more attentive and precise to the movements, meditators will be able to see the movements clearer and clearer. So at that time, they do not have the idea or the notions of the foot is moving. There's only there's merely an experience of a process movements and a process of noting mind. So in that way, when meditators could make more and more progress in the practice mindfulness, then the mindfulness will realize the Paramatha Dhamma clearer and clearer. Then when they could realize of the specific characteristics or the individual characteristics of the mental and physical phenomena clearly, then they come to realize that they are not permanent, they are subject to instant arising and passing away. If they have not yet realized the specific characteristics and the common characteristic clearly, they might have the idea of a self or person observing the object or observing the mind. So when they have the idea of self, then they could not realize the true nature of the mental physical phenomena clearly. So meditators should put forth effort to mindful and note whatever object that's arising at that present moment. For example, sometimes meditators are mindful and note the pain. Have been mindful and note the pain for quite some times. Then they may have the thought, I want to keep up the noting of that pain. I want to go back to the basic object. So at that time, they should quickly mindful note thinking. So if meditators could note that thoughts as thinking, then they come to realize this merely a thinking process. There is no I who is choosing the object. So when meditators could mindful of the object well, then as explained before, they come to realize the relationship between the object and the process of mindfulness. So do you know what's the relationship between the object and the process of mindfulness? So if your mindfulness is alert, you come to realize whenever there's an object arising, then the mindfulness will be arising instantly. If the object does not arise, then the mindfulness will not arise. If there's no rising movements, then the mindfulness cannot arise. If the phenomenon of hot does not arise, mindfulness also will not arise. So with the arising of an object, then the process of mindfulness will arise. If the object has disappeared, then the mindfulness that's arising dependent on the object also will subject to passing away or disappearance. Whatever object that's arising dependent on the condition will not last forever. But when mindfulness and concentration are not strong enough, meditators will not be able to realize the true nature of the process of mindfulness clearly. For example, when meditators are mindful of the process of rising movements, when rising movements has stopped, stop means disappear, there's no more movements, but they perceive that the mindfulness is still staying there. So the mindfulness is still staying there, and some meditators make mental noting, for example, knowing, or observing the gap, and so on. But the gap is not object of mindfulness meditation. So if the movements disappear, then meditators should be mindful of the alternative, for example, the sitting postures and the touching points. So at this stage of practice, meditators begin to gain some experience of conditionality or cause and effect. So it is important to understand these teachings of dependent originations. So if you study the teachings of dependent origination, Paticca Samuppada, you may come across this formula very often. This formula say that when this exists, or that comes to be, or with the arising of this, that arises. So when the mindfulness and concentration are strong, you realize when there's an object, then there's arising of mindfulness. When there's an intention arising, then there's a process of movements taking place immediately. So meditators only seeing cause and effect. So when there's an object arising, this object condition the arising of the awareness or the mindfulness. So when there's a intention arising, then the process of awareness or mindfulness also will be arising, noted that intention. So due to this intention, then there's a process movements arising immediately. So meditators realize that the mind is a cause, or the physical movements, the physical actions is the effect. Then when this does not exist, or that does not come to be, with the cessation of this, that ceases. So if the object does not arise, then the mindfulness or awareness will not arise. That's why in the practice mindfulness meditation, we cannot make a mental noting if we do not see the object. If meditators merely make a mental noting, for example, intention, although did not see intention, that noting is known as noting blindly. With the cessation of this, that ceases. So when the movements of rising had disappeared, do you think the mindfulness is still staying there? Actually, the mindfulness also subject to passing away immediately. So when meditators develop the mindfulness in accordance with the guideline or the principle of mindfulness meditation, then they may be able to realize a pair of processes is arising and passing away from one movement to next movement. So when the meditators realizes cause and effect or conditionality, they also come to realize the teachings of the karma. as you know, karma is defined as a cetana, or cetana is karma. So cetana is translated as a mental volitions or motive in English. All actions and movements are preceded by the mind. So one who has the knowledge of dependent origination may come to realize that due to the karma or in the past existence, that's why one take birth again. It's because meditators come to realize the arising object condition the arising of mindfulness. The passing away of the previous object condition the arising of the next object. At each moment there's only one object. If this object did not pass away or had not passed away, the next object cannot arise. But as long as meditators have not yet attained deep concentration, in other words, momentary concentration, they may not be able to see clearly. So when the concentration is so deep, then there's only awareness or mindfulness of one object or at each moment. So when the previous object had disappeared, then an object will be arising at the present moment. If the present object did not disappear, then the next object cannot arise. So meditators only realizing the cause effect. So one who has some knowledge of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, may come to realize it's due to previous karma or formations. That's why there's a birth taking place again in this life. If one has some knowledge of paticca samuppada, then one comes to realize. So this is known as sankara or karmic formations in the previous existence. So this arising of karmic formation also dependent on the ignorance. It's because of the ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. So one perform karma, for example, with the desire to be born in the sensual world or the Brahma world and so on. So if you understand the teaching of the paticca samuppada, then you come to realize dependent on ignorance arises these karmic formations, or in Pali avijja paccaya sankara. So because of these karmic formations in the previous life, so this dependent on these karmic formations or sankara arises consciousness or vijnana, or that means the rebirth consciousness. So with the arising of this consciousness, rebirth consciousness, in those dependent on this vijnana, then arises namarupa. Then this namarupa condition the arising of the salayatana. So as you know, the six same bases are the eye door, ear doors, nose door, tongue door, the body door, and the mind door. So dependent on this salayatana arises contact or pasa. So when there's pasa, then there's feeling or vedana. So in our life, we will experience vedana when there's contact. The vedana in brief is a present feeling or unpleasant feeling, or neither present nor unpleasant feeling. So when there's feeling, dependent on this feeling arises or craving or tanha. So when the craving is getting stronger and stronger, then condition arising of upadana, clinging. So when clinging is so strong, then that will involve new karma, or what I call karmic becoming. So
เรียกว่า sorry sir กรรมภาวะ
process becoming ภาวะ
ค่ะคือภาวะค่ะ
so when this process of becoming, then it will be another birth. So in other words, dependent on this bhava, the process of becoming, then there's jati or birth. So when there's birth, what will happen? So when the birth, dependent on birth, you have to go through the process of decay and death, or sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair, and so on. So this is known as the arising of the whole mass of suffering. It is also known as the noble truth for the cause or the origin of suffering. It is also known as the noble truth of the cause or the origin of suffering, or samudaya satya. So if you aspire not to be born again in this samsara, then what should be done? So one way is to stop doing karma. But how one is going to stop the doing karma? In fact, only the noble ones, for example, Arahant, Pacheka Buddha, Sama Sambuddha, are no longer doing karma. So because they have uprooted ignorance, craving, clinging. This ignorance, avidya, craving, tanha, clinging, upadana are known as kilesa vata, the round of defilements. So because of kilesa vata, then all one will perform various kinds of karma. So there's a round of karma, karma vata. If there's this round of karma, definitely they will round the results. Vipaka vata. So in other words, this karma will produces birth again in the samsara. So if you understand the teaching of Paticcasamuppada, it says that when this does not exist, or that does not come to be, or with the cessation of this, that ceases. So if one has attained cessation of karma, then there is no more vipaka vata.
No more.
With the cessation of karma, there's no more vipaka vata. That means there's no more rebirth. So if one aspire to attain cessation of karma, then one has to uproot kilesa vata. So in the verse, when kilesa vata does not exist, then this karma vata also does not exist. So when there's no more karma vata, then one also attain liberation from samsara. So when you practice mindfulness meditation and able to develop more and more insight knowledge of wisdoms, then you could understand these profound teachings of the Buddha. So I wish all meditators put forth effort diligently, develop mindfulness all the time. As the Buddha say, mindfulness is helpful everywhere, or is needed everywhere, so that eventually you could realize the profound teaching of Buddha and attain cessation of karma.